And welcome back to the Smart Tank Revolution, where we always kick out at 2. I am your host, the benevolent, intelligent, extravagant, and eloquent Mr. Donnie Wonderful. I'm Donnie, and this is another episode of the Essentials, where Smart Tank Revolution, where we rank wrestlers based on two unique rating criterias. One coming from my favorite wrestler, Bret the Hitman Hart's Autobiography, My Real Life in the Cartoon World of Wrestling, and the other, which is titled The Essentials, from us, Smart Tank Revolution, is our very own unique little interpretation or rating criteria that was created. Both, if you want to look at the descriptions, and I'm gonna go over each category anyway, but for more details on them and more in-depth understanding of them will be in the description box. It will go over both Bret Hart and Smart Tank's rating scale. But let's get into this. So I think it's only fair and fitting that my last episode was with Shawn Waltman, and episode 1 was Shawn Michaels. Episode 6, I believe, was a memorial tribute to Scott Hall, aka Razor Ramon. The last episode that I've done, I believe, which is episode 15, was Shawn Waltman, aka the 123 Kid. So let's just come full circle with the click. Today we're gonna do Kevin Nash, or Diesel, Big Daddy Cool, and this was always a very intriguing wrestler to me. He Kevin Nash himself, and even more so now because the internet and shoot interviews have really been available to us, to where we can understand, his logic and his thought process behind certain key moments in wrestling's history. Because I do believe that he deserves that credit as being one of the innovators of change, so to speak. And it's something that I don't think he gets enough credit for. And he does have some detractors, but I think anybody that controls the books, or that's on the booking committee, or is in charge of booking for any company, they're going to have some detractors. But he always struck me as a sound guy that has a mind for wrestling. And as we go along in ranking him and rating him, hopefully, I can gather my thoughts together, and I'll be able to explain why. And I kind of want to approach this at a different angle. I want to. We usually, reveal our ratings because we score these things. Bret Hart's rating criteria goes from 1 to 10, whereas Smart Tank's goes from 1 to 5 with, 0.5s and hell, even a 0.75, I guess. The Smart Tank's is, the overall score is more strict, but we're more lenient with the numbers that we rank, whereas Bret Hart's is just simple, 1 to 10. And if you get over 20, you're pretty good. Whereas with Smart Tank, I'd say if you get over 9, that means, you're in the upper echelon of things. But this is going to be, we're going to rank Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, aka Diesel, from beginning in 1993. We're just going to completely, shun and ostracize the Vinny Vegas and the Oz and that nonsense. But we're going to go from 1993 to now. The big man, Big Daddy Cool. So we're going to begin, as we always do, with Bret Hart's rating scale, which ranks a wrestler's look, his promo ability, and his in-ring work, all from scales of 1 to 10. And we're going to begin with the wrestler's look. Now, my colleague, Joey Business, has, in my opinion, absolutely killed this rating. Every time that he ranks a wrestler's look, it's so in-depth, it's so descriptive that I tend to agree with everything, with the exception of his Bret Hart one. But that's neither here nor there. But I tend to agree with his analysis of a wrestler's look and what it entails. Mine is much more lenient. Mine really just has to do with, I guess just more so the presentation. I factored in ring attire later, but also the physique is a part of it, but if it matches the wrestler and the character, so in Bret Hart's estimation of this, I believe the wrestler's look was that his body, because Bret gave himself a fairly average ranking. I don't remember what score he gave himself, but he gave Hulk Hogan a 10. He was like, yeah, he's a great looking guy, big 24-inch pythons and so on and so forth. With Joey's, I believe if we under the same example, Hulk Hogan would get the credit for being so big, but Joey would also tie in, the ring attire and yellow and red, warming colors, and would go more in depth. And I'm gonna try to do the same thing here. All right, Kevin Nash, the big 7-footer, former basketball player for, I believe, I think he was a Tennessee Volunteer back in the late 80s, early 90s. So he's always a tall guy. His ring attire with the the pants and the tank top, it fit him. The long hair, the glasses, the gloves when he was Diesel. I think everything fit him. When he walks in, it's one of those things where when he walks into a room, I mean, the man's so tall. It's like, man, did you play basketball? Or you're going to assume that he was an athlete. And if he told you he was a professional one or a professional at any level, you're going to agree. So I think the physique and appearance of him does warrant a high grade here. His ring attire was always consistent, not very colorful, but very, very consistent, and it fit him too. And I think that if he were to walk in your grocery store, he would definitely even to this day, he would definitely demand and command your attention. And I think he's even he's bulked up and chiseled out in his later years than his earlier ones. So with that being said, I'm going to go and give Kevin Nash a 9 with his wrestler's look. He said not as colorful with the ring attire again. So I believe that's the only reason why I wouldn't give him a full 10. Now, Bret's ring attire was pink and black, but you had different designs. I've always been a fan, no matter how much I hated the scumbag since 1997. But Shawn Michaels had great ring attire, and it was cool. I'm even Sean Waltman, the last one. I don't remember what I gave him, and I have to go back and listen. But when a kid, he had a kind of uniform ring attire for a year or two, but it gave us different colors of the spectrum. Kevin Nash, not so much. When he was Kevin Nash in WCW, he stayed with the red and black, but it worked for him. When he was Diesel, it was black and gray, and different carnations of that, maybe black on black, but it worked for him. But the size of him, and the wrestler's look is respectable, and he gets a high rank here. I give him a 9 on that. Now, next is the promo ability. In the description, it says that the effectiveness of performing a dialogue or monologue used to advance the storyline. I don't think he had any problems being able to articulate himself. I think that's easy, and I believe when we get to ours, it'll kind of tie into one of our categories. But staying on his promo abilities, I've never had a problem with any of his promos. As a matter of fact, he should get credit because during the whole WCW run, 1996, yes, those were promos. There's unscripted, but it felt like it was real. Now, what helped it? What assisted in making that feel real? Was it the fact that we didn't know that was going on? The absence of the internet then? What we can also add to those factors was the believability and how, he did those promos. He just showed up, pushed Eric Bischoff or shoved him. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. I remember when it happened live, us going back to school the next day, and if you didn't record it on a VCR, like that story just became just folklore and embellished to the stars. I mean, somebody said, yeah, he gave Eric Bischoff the forearm and whatever. Like now we can just go back on YouTube and look at all this, like the push or the shove or the whatever we want to call it. But like all of that, I think was done, calculated. It was a calculated move to do all of that. That's why I say I believe that he really had a sound mind for this business and just knew how to do everything on time. Whether his body allowed him to is another story, and we'll get to that within the next category. But I want to say for his promo ability, I'm gonna rank him high here. I'm gonna rank him an 8 here. Some of my favorite promos are actually his parody one, where he's where the NWO is parodying the Four Horsemen, and when Kevin Nash is Arn Anderson, some people can say, all right, they did the makeup and like they had the props with the bald spot, and some people may have thought it was corny. At the time, it was seen as really disrespectful, and it really drew heat. Arn Anderson is respected everywhere he goes, and when he gave, I don't even remember whose spot he gave his spot to the Four Horsemen too, but I remember watching it and thinking, man, this is cool. This is real. Like the emotions are real. Ric Flair in there crying, like this stuff is real. I think during the mid to late 90s, especially like right before where the Attitude Era began, when the NWO came, those promos with everybody always seemed real. Even the Gene Okerlund interviews. Gene Okerlund can interview anybody from WCW, and it always seemed like it was real. There was always something dark and grungy about it. To make a modern parallel analysis, in my opinion, it's kind of like watching the Marvel movies versus the DC movies. The Marvel movies have, like the bright colors. You watch Avengers. It has the bright colors. Everything looks polished, shined, and cleaned. You go to a DC movie. Look at the Christopher Nolan Batmans. They look dark, gritty, grungy, ashy, just grumpy. And that's what I thought WCW provided, and with a little more grit and attitude. With the pun being, this is also what helped kick off the Attitude Era. But yeah, I'm gonna stick with the 8 for the promo ability with Kevin Nash, and then we go to his in-ring work, which would likely be the lowest rank that I'm gonna give him, but to no fault of his own. I mean, big men typically, they're not the most agile guys, and they have like their go-to moves. Of course, like the Undertaker shatters all of this, but like I mentioned before, he's a basketball player, and I believe he had a lot of issues with his knee. He had a lot of issues with his knee, and that played into actually some of his classic matches. I remember even his elbows, like going back now, when you're watching all these wrestlers with all these pads, they're wearing these pads for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're able to get the full details of a wrestler's injuries. Back then we couldn't. So I give him a lot of credit for working hurt. But Jim Cornette actually made a comment when he was in charge of replacing Kevin Nash and Scott Hall with the fake Diesel, which is played by Glenn Jacobs, which we all know as Kane, or the Governor now, Glenn Jacobs, and the fake Razor Ramon. Said he took tapes of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash and said Scott Hall was much more harder to detail and pinpoint than Kevin Nash. He said Kevin Nash had about 6 moves. He said the sidewalk slam, the hair flip, snake eyes, the elbows, the knees, and I can't remember all of them, but I'm thinking that was pretty much it. So, like with that being said, even though he had those moves, it was all believable. He didn't go the jackknife, obviously, but he didn't need to go outside of the realm. I mean, he's a big 7 foot or 6'11". I'm not sure how tall he really is, but the man's a giant in there. His in-ring work, as in regards to being like a technical wrestler or an agile wrestler, I wouldn't give him praise for that, but it works for him. So I'm gonna go a 7 here. I'm gonna rank him a 7, and that's not a bad 7. That's not a bad average, in my opinion. I think that that does him justice. I think he'd even tell you that if he had to rank himself from 1 to 10 on his in-ring work and just being his abilities. You know what I mean? Like what he can do in the ring. The description says the ability to perform and execute a variety of wrestling moves. Well, if it's like 6 go-to ones, you can fill in the rest with just calling it on the fly. And I thought he always did a good job doing that. So, yeah, rehashing Bret Hart's, I believe I gave him a 9 for his wrestler's look. His promo ability was 8, and his in-ring work is 7. 654 coming up now. But now we're going to go on to our Smart Tank Revolution's unique rating system, which is called the Essentials. And we have 3 categories as well. So ours is innovative effectiveness, classic matches, classic rivalries, and defining and redefining moments. And I think here I'm going to defend myself right now and defend my rankings by saying Kevin Nash deserves to tip the scale on all 3 of these. And here's why. Innovative effectiveness is first, the ability to work as a babyface or heel. Okay, so as a heel, Kevin Nash is golden. Absolutely golden. And that's a straight 5 in itself. As a babyface, there's a reason why he was coined Big Daddy Cool, because that's exactly who and what he was. He was cool. Like back in the Diesel days, Diesel Blues, like his music was cool. He was the champion that used to just hold the belt, like never really wore it around his waist, I don't think, as much. Like all of that worked for him. And I believe he was the longest reigning champion in the 90s, from November 94 to November 95. And there was a reason why he was able to do that. Now, despite what everyone is say, oh, well, he was the lowest drawing champion in that era. Look, so what? So what? No, he was a good champion. He was a believable one too. Like as a babyface, think about 1995 Kevin Nash, 1995 Diesel, whatever. He can show up on anybody's show. Like back then, the sitcoms were the thing. If Diesel were to show up on like Family Matters or or Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like, he would fit right in. He was cool. That's what I mean. Like, the appeal, like, he could appeal to everybody on both sides of the heel and babyface spectrum. I'm gonna give him a 5. I think his he has a lot of charisma. I mean, even if you speak to him in person, which I have quite a few times, Kevin Nash is a cool dude. He's a cool ass wrestler, cool ass person, and I think, you know, he can perform both well. He can perform well at both a babyface and a heel. Okay, so now the classic matches and classic rivalries. Again, I'm going to defend the high 5, and here's why. This is going to be the take that I'm going to have for the rest, well, for the remaining category. But classic matches, classic rivalries, 5. Let's just go over the names. Shawn Michaels. You can have great matches with your best friend. That's phenomenal. But Shawn Michaels is on that list. Bret Hart is on that list. Scott Hall is on that list. Hulk Hogan is on that list. Randy Savage is on that list. Out of just those 5 people, I dare anybody to find me a bad match. Other than the figure poke of doom, find me a bad one. Sting is on that list. Goldberg is on that list. So, find me one. And this goes from Raw, WWF pay-per-views, WCW pay-per-views, multiple Nitros, and Thunders. Everything, all those opponents, like I said, minus the finger poke of doom, you find me a bad match. Go ahead. Come on. The comment section is right there for you. I challenge anybody. Debate that 5 there. Classic matches, classic rivalries. He had 3, and because he's my favorite wrestler, I'm going to go with Bret. He had 3 great matches with Bret in his 1994 run, which is going to spill over to the next category. 3 great matches, all uniquely different. King of the Ring, 1994, Royal Rumble, 1995, Survivor Series, 1995. Uniquely different, action-packed, told great stories, had a climax to it, respectable endings. King of the Ring, it looked like he was about to beat Bret. Cool. Diesel looked strong. The Royal Rumble one was kind of screwy, but basically the story there was you have the new champion, right? And then you have Bret, the old champion. Diesel beat the guy who beat the guy. And basically, if Diesel is standing tall, Bret's in trouble. So just look how they worked that match. And then the Survivor Series match, that spot where Bret goes into the table and everything, was recently kind of remixed with Wardlow versus CM Punk earlier this year in 2022. So if you guys can reference that and just draw the parallels there. But yeah, 5 classic matches, classic rivalries. 5. Perfect. And then defining and redefining moments. 5. Perfect on our scale. 5. Here's why. Let's just look at Kevin Nash / Diesel's 1994. That whole year is a defining moment for him. Who was the MVP in the 1994 Royal Rumble? I remember watching that, and we were all talking about a lot of stuff. Now, Owen Hart turned full heel, kicked Bret in his leg. That was pretty. That was a gut punch. What happened to the Undertaker was just like, damn, ain't nobody gonna come out and help him. Ain't nobody gonna come out and help him. And we ain't seen Undertaker, like, he took about 8 months off. He didn't come back until Survivor Series, SummerSlam rather. But the MVP of the Royal Rumble match itself, Diesel. I can't remember how many guys he threw out, but that's who we were talking about. And the crowd at the time, Providence Civic Center, were cheering Diesel. This is where you really got to see the potential of that man. Okay, so there was no there was no from there. There was no WrestleMania moment because he was still Shawn Michaels. I was going to say Michael Jackson. He was still Shawn Michaels' bodyguard. But he had an interesting he had an interesting point in that latter match where he had to be ejected that helped propel the story. But he goes on to win the Intercontinental Championship in 1994 and has a great match with the aforementioned Bret Hart at 1994's King of the Ring that made him look strong. Okay, so from there, he had a great match at SummerSlam with Razor Ramon for the Intercontinental Championship. That bled over to Shawn Michaels and Diesel finally separating at that Survivor Series in November, but a few days later he wins the belt against Bob Backlund in Madison Square Garden. Redefining moment, his whole entire 1994. And then, come on, 1996, just the NWO showing up on TNT. They have Monday Night Wars on Peacock on the WWE section because of moves like that. That whole the Monday Night Wars, the 82 or 83 weeks, however long it was. All of that is redefining. And where did it begin from? Where did it start from? Who helped? Who was one of the catalysts to steer that boat in that direction? Come on now, 5. And I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting things. I am forgetting things. Oh, one thing that does get overlooked. Oh man, the Main Event Mafia. The Main Event Mafia is one of the greatest stables that you all don't even talk about. And during that time in wrestling, that was a redefining moment. Not the hair is starting to go white. It's still long, but it's still starting to go white. And, he's past his prime, but he's still hanging in there. His TNA work. Come on, man. 5. I dare anybody to contest that or support it. That's what we have the comment sections for. So I had fun doing this one. And I never walk into these things with notes. Everything is just off the cuff, and that's how we like to keep this playlist going because it's all raw. It's as if we're speaking to you, only I'm looking at a computer with the sound waves because I'm recording. But I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I don't know who's next, but I encourage you all to go back and listen to the previous episodes if you haven't. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. Like the video, and feel free to comment on anything. Like, we engage with our supporters and detractors. It's your right to dislike, but yeah, voice it. And hopefully we can get some healthy wrestling talk going. And also, if you guys have any suggestions, we're approachable. Our Gmail accounts somewhere on our website, on our YouTube channel. Website will be coming soon. I'm speaking it into existence. But yeah, man, this is Donnie Wonderful. I want to give a shout out to my colleague Joey Business, who kicks ass at these things. And one day, for the I was about to say the bigger names. I don't want to call them the bigger names because I respect, and I think I speak for Joey too. We respect everybody in this business, but we intentionally have not done like the Stone Colds, the Undertakers, the Rocks, for reasons that you would expect us to do those guys, but we will. And I think that when we do those names, we're going to do those together so we can have, contrasting opinions of how we're going to rank them. And I think that'll be a fun listen for you guys as well. But, that's my time right now. I'm Donnie Wonderful for the Smart Tank Revolution. And I'll see you guys on the next episode of The Essentials.